I'm definitely looking forward to a discussion with such a distinguished group of experts in the field. We have with us AJ Malik, CEO of SecoMind AI, Octavian Tanas, Senior Vice President of Engineering at NetApp, David Jacobs, Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Planning at PTC Inc., Nishant Banthia, Vice President, Global Consumer Support Services at Dell Technologies, Evren Eruek, Director of Product Management for Data Analytics at Google, and myself as the host. So definitely looking forward to speaking with all of you and learning how kind of the overview that Atul provided applied to your personal experiences and how this really drives impact in deployment. So to get into that, I would like to start with a couple stories from people, if you're game. I know, Evren, when we spoke before the session, you mentioned that you had a couple implementation stories, and you might be able to start us off with one of those.
Yeah, let's start. This was a few decades ago when I began my career, and I didn't realize later on we were going to call it digital transformation. And when I started my career, I was in Emerson. Emerson is the leading process automation and control solutions provider. And the whole world of process control was literally analog. We had two wires coming from sensors into the control systems. We would measure the amps and voltages to either measure or control and so forth. Think about that world. Think about all the refineries, power plants. Everything was literally analog. And I was hired into the organization to actually lead what we now call IoT, what we now call predictive analytics, predictive maintenance. And this was a massive change in the industry. I'm talking about early 90s, guys. And back then, we didn't have the clouds and so forth to really drive any of these things. And I remember working on these technologies from sensors to the control room and going from digital to everything, analog to everything being digital. Communication protocols, all brand new. At the time, I remember pushing for, hey, we can actually make these sensors Wi-Fi. We can make sure that these sensors can actually talk Ethernet. Some thought I was crazy. I know I'm a bit crazy. That's okay. You need some crazy. Those all happen today. No one thinks we're crazy. Now, we were able to do some of these things back in the 1990s. That evolution, that transformation started that way. I remember the first refinery implementation that we had, one of the largest refineries in the world. This took place in Texas. And we were sweating bullets. We wanted to make sure because everything was live cutover. So we were going from analog to digital while the production was not stopping. Because when you stop that refinery, things would go really expensive in terms of buying gas across the world. And we didn't want to make any mistakes. So all that effort on the technology side, as well as the process side and the people side, really mattered. It took us a while to get to that point, but we never looked back. A few years later, I moved on to healthcare. That was another industry. In between, I had transportation. I will skip that one. Transportation, we digitized it. We started moving the trains much faster and so forth in North America. But in healthcare.
Actually, Evren, before we jump to a second industry, I just want to make sure we cover the rounds a little bit.
Sounds good.
I appreciate it. Octavian, I know you had mentioned a story about using data for enabling dragons that I found very interesting. Could you share a bit of that?
Well, first of all, Peter, thank you for inviting me. It's I'm delighted to be here. I've been at NetApp for 12 years and dealt with many customers in all kind of data management and data storage problems. But this one resonated not just with me but with my children as well. Now you mentioned dragons, and we have nothing to do with dragons, but we work very closely with a company called DreamWorks. The people that bring to many of you or your children these flying dragons and all that. And the reality is that these dragons, are developed and created by many animators, and these animators live all over the world. So our technology and our flagship ONTAP data management system, it's enabling these creative spirits to come together and collaborate and solve behind the scenes. We solve these data challenge of distributed development and making these guys productive, making these creators from all over the world come together and work as one.
Beautiful. And definitely the key. It's all about convergence and bringing everything together. And it's amazing how powerful it can be. Dave, PTC focuses on really applying a lot of that in manufacturing environments and bringing that data together. Can you share a bit about how you make that work and the impact that can drive?
Yeah, absolutely. So we consider ourselves like a capital P product lifecycle management company. And the concept, and especially for those who've been paying attention with our acquisition of ServiceMax recently, is within the same portfolio. You can design with us using CAD, manage configurations using PLM, enable your manufacturing through NPM Link and process design, monitor it with DPM, and then manage it in the field with field service management. And the vision is to connect all of those aspects of a product's life together in ways that you can draw insight from and is completely unique to our portfolio for customers that make and engineer the things we use every day.
Excellent. Thank you. Nishant, could I ask you a bit about your experience with automation? It definitely has a lot of discussion about it and how it's going to disrupt the workforce. But how did you see that play out?
So first up, thanks for having me. And I know it's pretty busy right now. I'm in India, Bangalore right now. Look, I've been with Dell for about 20 years now. And it's been a fantastic journey across business operations, analytics, digital transformation, which was my previous role. And then I lead a large-scale delivery team today. So it's almost like the hunter has now become the hunted. Everything that I developed or helped develop from a digital transformation standpoint has come the other side, where I need to embrace that and then implement that across a wide-ranging organization. Again, it's an extremely complex process. But I think to what Atul was saying, what we did was we tried to automate tasks within a workflow and not the entire workflow itself. And there's a very particular task that needed agents or frontline representatives to make 20, I think, judgments, decisions, or actions, which were all manual, which were all things that were subject to variability depending on the path that they choose to take. That was, I think, what we did was we transformed that into just 4 sets of actions, very, very binary. The rest of it was taken care of by the machines. And the one big learning that we had in all of this is we did not approach automation as a tool or a toolkit. We looked at it as an ecosystem. And that was the confluence of a lot of the tech stack that we have across 3 layers: intelligence, there is when you look at data science and machine learning, and all of that will be packaged into that. The consumption layer, which is extremely important, because if you get that wrong, then you will never have the adoption levels that you want. And the enablement layer would have everything around automation in terms of RPA, in terms of Dockers and containers, moving, embedding API into that solution, like convergence. So I think in a nutshell, we were able to get about 40% reduction in that task time end to end. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, that's an amazing metric. What did the company do with that extra time? Was that cost savings? Did it reinvest it somehow? How did you? Where did you go with that savings?
It gets reinvested. Any effort that you free up from an agent plate gets reinvested. Now, again, we got a network of about 10,000 folks, give or take, right? And there is always variability in terms of demand. There's always capacity that you're looking for to look at the crests and the troughs and trying to balance that out. So anything that you free up within the ecosystem can be rightfully repurposed at any point in time. So I think a lot of this was repurposed into the right area of need. And what it does eventually is that you don't have to hold on to capacity. It just adds a level of fungibility into your network, which is a huge plus, especially in businesses like ours.
Nice. AJ, you had mentioned how you're building generative AI into your workflows and how you operate. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Sure. And, like what Nishant mentioned, I was smiling when he said extra time. Generative AI is all about giving us extra time, or too much extra time, in fact. So for the people who are new, and first of all, Peter, thanks for having me. And for the people who are new to the word generative AI is all about machines creating new and unique outputs. So this is like almost creation, like as the God created humans, human creates AI, and now AI is able to create new data, new information, anything new which can be used. Although the concept of generative AI has been old, since 1950s, people have been working on it, but businesses have started using it in last 2 years. We are using it in our marketing, lead generation. We are using it in our manufacturing, and in fact, even for customer experience personalization. But people now have become much more aware because ChatGPT has brought it into the forefront of everyone. It is transforming everything: content creation, product design, how people will participate in the metaverse, automation, personalization, many areas. I think the digital transformation is like, to me, it's no more 2.0, it's like 20.0 with the generative AI.
Nice. Actually, mentioning product development, David, do you have thoughts on generative AI and how that can feed into the product development side of things?
Yeah, I mean, on our end, the key, if you're trying to create a digital thread for a product's lifecycle, is you have to ingest data from many different points in that lifecycle. So we have software that connects on the edge. And if you consider CAD being on the edge of the design cycle, we have edge agents on the service cycle for Internet of Things for products, and you have edge agents in the factory and the manufacturing process. So you take that information, you have to get a data model for it, and then all of the inferences you want to draw off those large data sets need to be done through some form of AI, right, to interpret, contextualize, and display the data. So it's core to the vision we have. It's core to what we do. It's embedded in our products. Everything along the way, we do generative design using AI and CAD simulations, all those things. It's in our ThingWorks product, which is our Internet of Things product. So we use it across. We often don't even think of it as a product. It's more like a feature you must have. I think to kind of what Jay was saying is like it's native to the space that you want to operate in. So it obviously needs to be there versus being like a special topic or attention.
Yeah. Let me add one more thing, Peter, what Dave is saying. It is like for CAD and CAD design, product design, just imagine when the product, it can create multiple options, all the options which are possible to show you like all these options are possible for your product. And then you can have all the experience, like how people will experience and what will be the user experience on that. If you could get that data without doing any effort, that's what generative AI does to you. And that's how you can create amazing products.
Yeah. I know personally, I've convinced my children to work on generative AI and learn ChatGPT. I think it's just going to be a major enabler and a life skill on how to work with these AI assistants and make it part of what you do.
I personally believe, I know I'm going far out there, but I believe generative AI is the biggest invention in the current state, like the way ChatGPT and other companies are using it and building tools out. This is like, it has not happened. It's even farther than internet invention. Internet connected everybody and huge, but it took much time, right? And still there are over 2 billion people not connected. But the generative AI impact will spread like a wildfire for everyone to get it now.
So that's a lot of the upside. Evren, I believe you had a thought on how applying some of these modern tools too abruptly or not carefully enough can actually have some downsides. Could you share some of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. It's cultural aspects of it. People are used to what they're using. People are used to how they have been doing it. And if we go all in, all at once, there is an organ rejection. It's sort of adoption to change, I suppose. What has worked in some of my experience, either personally what I have led myself or helped other companies in their journey, starting with a small group of people who are sort of the evangelists, but they are representatives of their respective groups. It could be the finance team, it could be the engineering team, whatever the team in the organization, that people would, oh yeah, I know that person. If that person is actually adopting this, let me see what's in it before I say no. So identifying those, call them evangelists, call them whatever we want to call it, and then using them as the sort of the vehicle to push, vehicle to be the voice of the broader users, works great. Early successes and sharing those early successes, why it works, what they have done and so forth, is great. And also, don't hide what didn't work, because everybody knows certain things will not work. Hiding those just loses the credibility for the person, the group that is pushing this change. Look, we've tried this, it didn't work. Here's what we learned. Here's how we're pivoting with all these learnings and applying it to the next phase. That's a welcome approach. That's a positive way of doing it. So it's whether it's the tools that they're going to use it for software development, or it's the change that they're going through from one set of software to another software while they're running their businesses, it does not matter. It's a change. They might be changing their data warehousing tools. It's a change. Just go through with this notion.
That makes sense. One thing I'd like to open it up to for whoever has a direction they'd like to go with it is, we've kind of touched on digital transformation within a lot of single technologies. Where do you see the most exciting convergences where more than one of these trends come together to really do something different?
I can start.
Please.
All right. So I think the biggest, one of the most useful and simplest use case, which most people can easily adopt, is the customer support use case of digital, because digital transformation requires businesses to be able to provide support, and with a lot of manuals, lot of data behind them, lot of system, and how to provide support. It is all bogged down by training. People have to learn, people have to explain that. All that can be done automated, and all that can be done conversational, and all that can be done in a unique way for the customer, specific customer. So the customer support will, I think, every company will do customer support by 2026 differently.
Nishant, it sounds like that's pretty much up your alley if you'd like to build on it.
Absolutely true, Rajesh. If I just look at the number of parameters on which this already mirrors, right? We are in the desktop business, so pretty much any tel system that is sold out there, there are 66 million of those. If anything goes wrong with them, somebody on my team is going to be of assistance. So you've got like the system models which are there. Within that, you've got the usage patterns and behaviors. You've got the vintage of the systems, which is different. You've got multiple issue types. There are more than like 100,000 unique combinations that could happen and result in an issue. So clearly, I think if we do not embrace technology, we're never going to be able to solve this mammoth problem, which is a matrix in of itself. And to what Ajay was saying, right, there are evidences that we've been able to put in place, whether it be in terms of customers calling in and doing voice assistance with a massive NLP engine in the back end, which will call through the knowledge bases and looking at the persona of the customer and the issue that would go down an algorithmic path to come up with what the right solution to the problem is. There are some fantastic tools which are transforming the way we train people, right? So there are augmented reality videos that you could just look at your phone and essentially you do not have to have a system in front of you to tear it down and get to the nitty-gritties of what the internals look like, which earlier was not possible without getting 20 people into a classroom and demonstrating that to them firsthand, right? Huge logistic like that. The need for that has gone away just by the sheer use of technology. So the scale at which we operate, I think we cannot live without some of these transformations. And I do want to make a very small point that there is a lot of resistance to any change that you want to drive in an organization. I just thought that the silver lining with all that happened through COVID was that this almost became inevitable. We did not have choice. And hence, once we moved over, I think a lot of people just said, oh, it's not that bad. And I think it just did make things a lot more accelerated than otherwise we would have taken a longer time for.
I like that. And I think that moves the discussion more into the how do you implement side of it. And I'd like to go to Octavian next about the very beginning of a process. When you're starting a digital transformation journey, where would you advise people start?
Well, I think I want to, before I answer that, build a little bit on what some of my industry colleagues, mentioned. I think at the center of, many of these revolutionary technology is data. In data, it's increasingly more diverse, maybe unstructured, maybe in traditional databases. It's highly distributed. Some may be created at the edge or in traditional data center or more and more in the cloud nowadays, right? So in this age of data, companies are dealing with a lot of complexity. So what they're looking, it's for holistic solutions across network, compute, analytics, storage solutions that are simple, solutions that are have in mind a very reasonable TCO, solutions that scale, solutions that deal with fantastic performance, as well as solutions increasingly that span the traditional data center and the cloud, right? And I feel that what NetApp's mission is, to holistically look at the data journey and enable many enterprises which held us in high regard for the last 30 years as the stewards of their data, to simplify this, to build more resiliency, more security, more cost effectiveness in the way they manage, the data. So now to answer your question, I would say, many enterprises, as they think of digital transformation, have to ask themselves a couple of questions, right? What are some of the, the key business imperative? And that changed. I think one of our colleagues, talked about COVID, and at the time, business continuity was the biggest imperative because people were not able to travel to their place of employment, or there were many such challenges. Others may be past that and thinking, hey, how can we get more insights out of the data, right? And people have talked about generative AI. And I think there's probably, something that everybody will have to answer, in an enterprise. How am I employing AI, ML to look at the data, anticipate trends, and transform that into a business value? So, to summarize, I would say, hey, look at the business imperative and think how you can apply digital transformation to what's most important for you today.
That makes sense. So understanding the business imperative is the first step. And then the next, I hear a lot of discussions about, are we building our products, our internal processes? Where should we apply it? Does anyone have a preference on what they'd recommend in that regard? Should you try to solve issues in services, products, internal workflows? Where do you think the most value is?
It will depend upon the company, what you do. Okay. And so customer support definitely helps everyone because it touches everyone, but it depends upon the company, right? Like for some companies, doing it in product might be more important than the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for example, the pharmaceutical companies and all, they are using generative AI for creating new molecules, designs, virus, identifying problems at a different level. So product, but for the other companies who are in manufacturing or have floor, okay, I recently talked to a cup customer. They make wooden doors, and I would not think that they have any use case of cloud or IoT or AI directly, right? But with their large manufacturing and warehouse, right? That's where the generative AI and the regular AI both make sense. So it all depends what you do and where you want to apply and where your pain point is or where you are looking for cost saving or efficiency.
Dave,
it would depend. Yeah, it would depend on your core competency. What's your secret sauce as a company? What makes you great? And then what the business problem is that you're trying to solve. So for us, I mean, we one of the biggest use cases in service might be preventative maintenance, and you're going to have a model trained on recognizing the signs and signals from products in the field on when they're going to fail. You would enable that if you're in a business model, like let's say you're running product as a service, meaning you're renting, licensing, continually updating a product in the field, or you have a major service business. You may focus more on manufacturing if you're a large manufacturer and you need to make sure that your uptime and time loss is where you need to be because OEE is your constraint. And in the product, I mean, it allows you to differentiate what you design. If you train a learning model on aspects of CAD design, you can design things that only that meet specific requirements that no one else can make. So it really depends on what problem you're trying to solve for our customers.
Yeah, Peter, I'd probably add, right? I think one of the common themes that all of us are sort of alluding to is that we should have clarity in terms of the problems that we want to solve. I've also seen across the board, right, there's this exuberance about new technology coming in and a lot of excitement around it. And oftentimes you see people taking these great technologies and look out for a great problem. I think the process has to be reversed on its head. You should look at the problem you really want to solve. And there's definitely I just caution people not to sort of just get enamored by something which is bright and shiny and real potential and say, now, it's almost like, I mean, we discussed this, right? For a guy with a hammer, every problem is a nail. And we do not want to go down that path of transformation. So honestly, if it's a very critical problem that can be solved, that's a great solution. We should not try and push and force technology down the throat of problems.
Yeah. And I just add one line there, right? We are talking all about AI and how it will change and how we will add it in digital transformation. There is a small value and very significant value of the human in the loop. And that will be there always. And I think to the Nishant's point also, same thing, keep using that human in the loop while doing anything. So you make the right decision. Don't just use AI just for that I want to use it. Just use where it really helps you. And then the beauty is you will be able to do feedback and verify, does it work or not? And in simulation world also.
Excellent. Coming back to implementation a bit, a couple of you mentioned culture being critical. What about culture at different levels in terms of what's different about getting the front line on board and using these tools and then leadership really actively championing them? Evren, would you want to start that one?
Absolutely. It goes hand in hand with sort of the adoption of the new tools, right? It's, again, cultural. And I think everyone plays a role. We really have to reach out to the most junior person, to the CEO of the organization. And I remember the days when we were pushing for Agile in GE, and the CEO said, "Hey, Aaron, you got this, run." I said, "No, It's not mine. It has to be you. It has to be you telling the story. It has to be you carrying the flag. I will do everything else. But if our employees don't see you believing in it, you're not in it with us, then nobody's going to. So again, going back to the cross section of all the elements of the teams, don't leave anybody behind. Reach out to them and have a representatives, but everybody has to carry it because this is a big cultural change. And, you know, as much as it needs to be top down, they need to understand, believe it, and so forth. But they have to also listen the concerns, what's being raised, because they're in the trenches. They're actually doing all the work. And there will always be this, you know, this is mine. I'm going to hang on to it. Why should I let go? That's the cheese, right? They're used to that. They're used to having that. Now, if we can show them the projection of where this is going to go and why this will help them, things will be different. Just be there, roll up the sleeves, have a lot of conversations, communicate, over-communicate. Just when you thought you've communicated enough, do more.
Very nice. Very nice.
Has anyone come across technology that helps with the communication, with educating and getting people on board? We hear a lot about the need for these really engaged and proactive employees, but is there anything, any tools you found that help with that? Sure.
All right, I'll go. I'm not like promoting any one technology over the others. Before I joined Google, we were using, probably everybody else was using similar technologies. But Google has built these technologies for its employees to be more collaborative, to be more interactive. And when I saw this in here, our kids, my kids were operating that way. I was not. And they were much ready. That generation is far ahead of us in terms of how they're collaborating, interacting with one another. One of the largest global system integrators and consultants has wasted tens of thousands of hours every year working on documentations, sheets, tools, whatever it is, and so forth, until they have gone through the adoption of these new technologies that Google has adopted across the world. And they've seen the efficiencies, because you're working on the same documents. I remember working on slides that would go to the board. We would have 250 different versions of the same set of slides. But when you do it in a collaborative way, you can interact in a collaborative way on the same thing, they're all captured there. Everyone's voice is there. You can make the comments, everyone's voice is seen, addressed, whatever it is. This really made a big difference. When I saw this interacted and adopted in fintech companies, manufacturing companies, healthcare companies across the world, I've seen how they have done it. So first experience, and I'm a big advocate.
Nice.
So I am ex-Google, so I may sound biased also, but nothing better than Google Docs. Okay, it's like all my apologies to all other companies trying to create garbage collaboration tools. Okay, because Google Docs really solves the problem in the most easy way. And once you start using it, it has its own challenges, but it's still the best for collaboration and how people work together.
Yeah, I worked on enough large government RFPs before those collaboration tools were available that I have so much appreciation for. Yeah, it's a game changer.
I'll give you guys an example. I'll give you guys an example how I felt like a dinosaur when I was chatting with my kid before I started using Google Docs, before I joined Google. I was asking my younger son, I said, send me a copy of your doc that you're writing your paper on. He looked at me, I don't understand what you're telling me. I said, just, send me the documents. Well, I'll send you a link. And I said, he looked at me and then I said, no, just send me the document. I'm used to getting a copy of the document. I'm going to send it. So he's going to take my inputs. And no. Look, here's what I'm writing. Here's what my teacher is writing. Join the company. Help us. What do you think I should change in here? That was an eye-opener for me.
So, David, with implementing digital transformation, are there any other systems or support that you believe is helpful in making that succeed?
So specifically to implementing digital transformation, you have to start to digitize enough of that, for us, production capability in order to run more analytical methods on top of it. On the point we were just on, though, with collaboration, that has become a driver of our business, and we're seeing meaningful changes in the way that engineering and the interconnectedness versus the agility of supply chains and production relative to the past. So it used to be kind of series. You would design, then you would plan to manufacture, then you'd manufacture, you'd procure. One of the expansions for our business has been that more and more and more user types need to engage with engineering data. So we're viewing capabilities, projecting engineering data to more supply chain people has naturally expanded our PLM presence. And with engineering specifically in CAD, multi-tenancy and multiple users working on the same design, like a Google Doc, allows you to design faster, give feedback quicker. And this is also true in software workflows where we have ALM. So the collaboration point's huge. It's got more applications than I think any of us could realize at the time, but it's becoming more and more and more important. On the digital transformation side itself, everyone has an ERP. Not everyone has edge connectivity in their factory. Not everyone has thought of embedding telematics in a product. So those are kinds of enablers for us too, that customers, when they start to think about, there's the interconnectedness of the whole system.
That makes sense. With a lot of people talking about data as the core, let's talk about the integrity of the data for a little bit. In fact, Octavian, if you could weigh in on some of the security and data quality issues that keep the system working.
Yeah, I think data and data security, it's probably top of mind, for many enterprises, right? Ransomware in particularly has been a source of resume-changing events for people in our industry, and it's typically not a promotion. I think the cyber threat of our time right now is ransomware. It's rapidly accelerating, and there are many companies, many technologies that are being employed to create a very robust, seamless, set of solutions that protect, the data. I would say most of the requirements in the area of data protection right now are driven by cybersecurity and ransomware. It's so broadly employed by nefarious actors right now that you read it in the New York Times. So NetApp's approach to solve that, it's to partner with many technology providers and offer a comprehensive view of how one should think of security, from protecting, detecting, and recovery from some cybersecurity breaches, right? So you want to thwart ransomware. You want to quickly identify threats before they become a significant problem, and you want to enable your business to rapidly restore that. Again, I don't think anybody in the industry has one solution that solves everything. I think more and more, companies are looking to employ zero trust, architectures that enable, very granular, access, patterns to their data, and a very deliberate way to protect. The business, protect the data, or if you in the cases when you're not able to do that, quickly identify and take measures to recover.
Nice. Nishant, is it similar in your experience, or do the concerns change as you take something up to a massive scale?
No, I think amplify, if you will, right? And I think if you just look at it, there are about 10,000 nodes where interactions are happening, and that's the interface, that's the edge between us and the customer. So obviously, I think when you're trying to do anything across multiple ecosystems of our own sort of employees, as well as the huge partner network that we work with, I think security becomes one of the biggest things that we want to guard against, and almost make sure that this whole system is as watertight as it can be. I think the other piece with scaling any kind of implementation is that the results that you get in a lab versus what you get at scale when you're trying to almost globalize it are going to be very different. And you've got to budget for some of those inefficiencies to become a part and parcel of your sort of scaling. Right. Oftentimes, if your lab is determining the difference between on a certain ROI, chances are that you're in for a big surprise as you start scaling. So you've got to temper that with sort of regional nuances, with differences in processes that you will have to customize to a certain extent. But I don't think you can accommodate a lot of that. And in the spirit of standardization, which is, I think, a bedrock of any kind of automation that you want to drive, you will have to let go. Like I always say that you've got to sort of sacrifice a lot of local optima in favor of a local maximas in favor of a global optima.
That makes sense.
And I think that's when you take it from a lab to a scale.
Yeah. Nice. David, what about red flags or warnings? If you're working with someone and implementing this, what should they be careful to avoid?
Sorry to come off mute. So the thing that'll happen for us that we really want to avoid is our kind of science projects with customers. So proof of concepts can be a never-ending, I'm speaking from the provider's perspective, but it can be a never-ending slog and loss of money unless you're sure there's business value there. So it's the red flag is when the business case isn't strong enough and when it's all about the technology. So you know when you're setting up, you got to be mindful of the value on the other side and get real dedicated adoption of the executives that are sponsoring it.
Yeah. And to add to David's point, you know, not having a measurable metrics. Okay. Very important that there is a metrics which we are tracking or you are tracking and you have some milestone around it. Because a lot of times thinking that this is an 18-month project and we are all jumping into it and doing it, it will just change the world or company business. It will not. And it will definitely, that's one of the biggest red flag, not having milestones and metrics.
Sure. I'd like to touch on regulation, and maybe that's related to security or data privacy. Octavian, do you have thoughts on what regulation would be needed or helpful in this field?
Well, I would say this regulations are quite different. At the company level, at the government level, at the geo level. So I think everybody in any enterprise need to to anticipate how these regulations and data governance will influence their business. And I would say probably the simplest way to do that, the most effective way that is to partner with cloud providers, because they're operating at the scale bigger than any enterprise, and they are having to solve that problem for their customers. What we're implementing in our tools and products are solutions that look at data insights, at GDPR compliance and so forth. But no one solution would fit all use cases. So I would say try to ride the innovation curve that happens in the cloud and build solutions that complement that innovation.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Regulation can also be a case for technology. We see some of our best customers are medical device, highly regulated industry, or government entities, and they look to technology to help with compliance with those regulations, because you can document your adherence. You can have a system of record that insulates them from other litigation or liability. So there's the other side.
I was going to say the same thing, but David just said. So cool.
Great minds think alike. But I think it makes sense. In security, it's similar. If you don't have a checklist, if you don't have a standard, it's easy to miss something. And it's a lot better to have it laid out, as long as it doesn't create a lot of overhead and make it more onerous to comply.
And start small, do some small provable implementations, and which demonstrate the value of whatever you are doing to everyone in every area, any area. It really helps. To just
Excellent.
give you an example, right? And this is following up like what everyone was saying also, right? Like the CEO in my company, I'm pushing, right? Like, hey, you have to use generative, and like this is it's a must-have tool. But what I also did was work with my help desk team, which is located in India, and I picked 4 people from there, and then they have become our social media content generator using AI. And these are the people who did not have command on the English language or how to do things in marketing. But by using the help of AI, they are able to they are actually worth now at least 3x their salaries, what they were getting. And I'm thinking is a lot of people will be converted and will get paid more because they will become more capable using the tools of today.
Definitely. In fact, are there any other revenue drivers from digital transformation, different business models, or other applications of these technologies that can create a new revenue stream that people have come across?
For the customer or partner, or for the provider?
Any. Yeah, whichever one you think is most interesting to start with.
Well, the business model in digital transformation, obviously, if you move towards subscriptions and SaaS, you start to get different economies. You get recurring revenue. You get operational efficiencies if you can get into multi-tenancy. You can also get more openness for the ecosystem to develop with you or fill holes in the offering or customize things. So those can provide recurring revenues all over the board. For the customer, usually it's a better level of service to their end user. So it's just all over the board. Like it's a better collaboration, efficiency, and name it.
Nice. Everin,
I do want to mention, if I didn't, it would not help, right? There's a shift with this digital transformation. Remember the days of broadcasting, people would have these big, broad marketing ads and so on and so forth. Now we're going from precision to predictive area. Really, I'm pointing to the right targeted talents, the people, the personas that you're going after, whatever you want to sell it. This actually brings up new ways of generating revenue from these in many cases, automated machine learning, very anticipating the consumer needs, the customer needs, and targeting that generates new sets of revenues. So the companies who are going through this has to really figure out, what does it mean for them? How do they change? It's about customer experience, all the way from selling to supporting. This is changing with the digital transformation.
And I know that brings us to the end of our time. I really enjoyed this conversation. It certainly covered a lot of ground. And I think that's a lot of the nature of digital transformation. It's something that applies in just about every field and includes a very broad set of technologies. I think some of the common hubs here are that it's all about the data at the core and how we converge a lot of powerful tools around it, and then how we get the humans together to make the most of it. and really drive the impact that it has the potential to drive. Excellent. Well, thank you all very much for your time. I loved speaking with you, and would love to stay in touch.